everyone, and thank you all for coming. I'm happy to be here with our Minister of Advanced Education, Rajan Sawhney, Director of the School of Public Policy, Martha Hall Findlay, and the President of Ipsos Public Affairs, Clifford Young, who will be joining us shortly as well. We're in the room today. We also have many dignitaries, University of Calgary President and Vice Chancellor Ed McCauley, nice to see you. We've got former Lieutenant Governor of Alberta, Her Honor the Honorable Lois Mitchell. We've got the Consul General of the U.S. in Calgary, Emily Fleckner. We also have the Consul General of Calgary, the British Consul General in Calgary, Jonathan Turner, and MLA Miles McDougall, among other guests, and I think I have a couple of ministers here as well. But we're here today to announce a new initiative aimed at strengthening our understanding of the Canada-U.S. relationship. It's no secret that our relationship has hit a rocky patch these past few months, and while tensions have ridden high, let us be clear, this relationship is far from over. We are still neighbors, and for much of our history, we have been the best of friends too. Our two nations share a unique, decades-long bond that has delivered mutual benefits for generations. Our geography links us together like few other nations in history. In fact, our two nations span more than 80% of the North American continent. We have closely integrated economies and a warm sense of kinship between our populations. And over the years, we've collaborated on everything from missile defense to space exploration, wildfires, Arctic research, and invasive species management. Here in Alberta, for example, the U.S. is by far our biggest trading partner, and Alberta plays a major role in supplying U.S. energy needs. The way we see it, any rift between us is a huge loss for both countries. If things continue to change between Canada and the United States, we want it to be changed for the better, because our continued friendship and cooperation will create lasting prosperity for both nations. But we can't sit around waiting for this to happen. We must take action. And that's why our government is investing $6.5 million over the next 3 years to support the new North America initiative led by the University of Calgary's School of Public Policy. This initiative will bring together some of the brightest minds in academia, government, and the private sector to investigate developments in the relationship between Canada and the United States. This effort will spark collaboration across Alberta's universities and a number of leading American universities to develop policy solutions that respond to the new reality. To me, talking to each other and working with each other is the only way we're going to figure things out. This is the constructive and diplomatic approach that I've been calling for since this whole problem began. And these recent bumps in the road are a good reason to take a close look at the relationship to figure out what's working and what we can do to improve it, which is exactly what the new North America initiative aims to do. For countries as closely connected as we are, it's in both our national interest to repair things as quickly as we can, because our nations are better off when we're working together. And there's so much to gain from strengthening the relationship between Canada and the United States. We are peaceful neighbors with shared values and a deep mutual respect. We have economies that complement each other perfectly. We have everything we need to secure our mutual energy supply indefinitely and achieve North American energy dominance. And if we can get it right, the future of our continent looks very bright indeed. And the new North America initiative will help to bring that future into focus. I look forward to seeing the innovative solutions these universities will come up with as this important work progresses over the next 3 years. Thank you, and with that, I'd like to invite Minister Rajan Sawhney to share more details.
Thank you, Premier. What an incredible turnout today. Welcome, everyone, and thank you for being here for this very important announcement. I know we are joined by many of our partners who have traveled from across Canada and the United States to be here today with us. Your presence underscores the significance of what we are launching today. Today marks an important step forward, not just for Alberta, but for Canada and our academic and policy communities across North America. For decades, Alberta and Canada have shared a strong cooperative relationship with the United States, founded on mutual interests, robust trade, and deep institutional ties. But that relationship is undergoing a fundamental shift. We must respond to the immediate consequences, yes, but we must also take a longer view. This is a generational change, and it demands forward-thinking, coordinated responses. The Government of Alberta recognizes that we need to leverage our province's strengths, our talent, our institutions, our international networks to better understand and navigate the new North American environment. I remember when the tariffs were first introduced, I started scanning Alberta's post-secondaries to find the latest academic research on Canada-U.S. relations. And unfortunately, what I found was a distinct shortage of this work. Right now, most research and analysis on Canada-U.S. relations originates from east of the prairies or from the U.S. itself. This narrow focus too often fails to reflect the priorities or even the realities of Western Canada. If we are to respond effectively to these shifting dynamics, all parts of Canada must be heard and reflected in our academic and policy thinking. I spoke with Premier Smith about this, and we agreed that Alberta has both the capacity and the perspective to lead that effort. So we set up roundtables to discuss the role post-secondaries could play in meeting this very real need. We gathered industry, academics, and a wide range of experts and evaluated various potential options. And from that, we were able to find the best way forward. This brings us to today's announcement, which the Premier already announced, the new North America Initiative. This is a made in Alberta long-term response to the changing Canada-U.S. relationship and the critical gap in regionally grounded policy-relevant research. And importantly, with the closure of the Canada Institute at the Wilson Center in Washington, this will now be the only dedicated institution on all of North America focused exclusively on Canada-U.S. relations. That distinction matters, and so does the fact that Alberta is leading the way. The new North America Initiative will be a hub for applied responsive research and strategic convening. It will bring together academics, policy experts, government leaders, industry, and civil society across North America to generate practical insights, foster collaboration, and inform decision-making. It will also serve as a platform for training the next generation, equipping students with the skills and knowledge to lead in government, the private sector, and beyond, at a time when cross-border engagement is more critical than ever before. This initiative is about understanding the real-world impacts of a changing North American relationship and preparing Alberta and Canada to meet those changes head-on. It's about shaping a future where Alberta-based researchers are ready, they're a trusted source of intelligence and ideas, offering perspectives that are grounded, diverse, and reflective of Western Canada's voice. Following today's announcement, we will be joining a roundtable discussion with experts from across Canada and the U.S. to formally launch the collaborative work of this initiative. This conversation will begin the kind of cross-border, cross-sector dialogue that the new North America Initiative is built to support, responsive, collaborative, and action-oriented. This initiative will include researchers from Alberta and the United States, including from the University of Alberta, the University of Lethbridge, Mount Royal University, University of Nebraska, University of Colorado, Arizona State University, Rice University, and of course, the University of Calgary. By strengthening our understanding of the evolving North American landscape, we're building Alberta's capacity to shape effective, forward-looking public policy. This is a significant milestone for our province, and it wouldn't be possible without the leadership and vision of Premier Smith and the strength of Alberta's post-secondary institutions and their commitment to excellence. I look forward to the insights this initiative will generate, the partnerships it will cultivate, and the leadership it will help develop for years to come. Thank you, everybody, once again for being here today. And now I'd like to invite Martha Hall Findlay, Director of the University of Calgary School of Public Policy, to the stage.
Well, good morning, everyone. We are indeed very excited and so pleased to have so many people come to share this announcement with us. We are all, of course, aware of the dire
current state of Canada-U.S. relations, and the scope of the challenge that confronts Canada demands that we in Canada do more. The University of Calgary and the School of Public Policy are honored to take up this challenge with, of course, financial support and other support, but of course, financial support from the Government of Alberta. Thank you, Premier Smith and Minister Sawhney and your whole government. I am pleased that our President, Ed McCauley, has joined us, as he's been instrumental in the strong support from the University for the School of Public Policy, but also for the new North America initiative we are launching today. So thank you, President McCauley. This initiative has been almost 5 years in the making through the work of my new colleague at the School of Public Policy, Carlo Dade. So Carlo joined the School of Public Policy only a couple of months ago as the Director of International Policy. This is very much his initiative, and he has been working on it for quite a long time. We get to take the benefit because he's now with us. Carlo, can you please stand up for a second? And he had the ability to work on this for the last number of years while being at the Canada-U.S. Foundation. So I'd like to do a big shout out to Gary Marr. Where's Gary? Thank you. Thank you for so much, Gary, actually, but including Carlo and the work that we're being able to announce today. With the new North America initiative, we will develop a long-term, built-from-the-ground-up response to the unprecedented challenges Alberta and Canada face in our most important trade and political relationship. The current crisis makes the case for applying a new type of thinking to how we engage with the United States, and of course in our relations with Mexico too. The name of the initiative, the new North America Initiative, signals our goal to create a new vision of what North America can be. It's been fantastic in the past, but times have changed and we do need new thinking. And we will do this from Calgary and bring a Western Canadian perspective to what is truly a national initiative, a North American initiative. We are already working with leading academics from universities in Alberta and the United States, as you heard from Minister Sawhney, and we are pleased that some of our colleagues could actually join us today. As the Minister said, we will be proceeding from here to a roundtable where we will actually start digging into what is it that we're going to be focusing on what are the specific areas of work. So we're really excited about that. As the initiative grows, we will welcome more organizations. This is an all-hands-on-deck effort. Carlo likes to say this initiative is about substance, not sound bites, and that's true. We are going straight into our first working session as soon as this announcement wraps up. The new North American initiative is desperately needed. We recently lost the only Canada-U.S. Public Policy Institute with the closure of the Woodrow Wilson Institute in Washington. Our friend Chris Sands has been the head of the Canada-U.S. Institute, the Canada Institute at the Wilson Centre for a number of years, and I will just shout out to Chris. He has been Canada's best friend in the United States, and really frustrating to see what's happened with the Wilson Centre. We are hopeful that a new Canada Institute will be established in Washington, and we look forward now, but even with that new institute set up, we look forward to working with our friend Chris very closely as we work on these important issues. We need more intelligence, we need more connections, we need more research, and we need different perspectives, and that is what the new North America Initiative will deliver. I now have the pleasure of introducing Clifford Young, who is the president of Ipsos Public Affairs. He runs a program at Ipsos called Know the New America. That isn't N-O, it's K-N-O. Know the New America. I know you might have been tempted to think that way, given things, but no. And you know, our thesis here is, and very much Carlo's thesis, is just how much the U.S. has changed. It's been a fantastic relationship for so long, but it has changed. And we need to be able to change alongside that. Cliff brings immense detailed knowledge of what's happening south of the border. We're really excited that he's joined us today, and we're really looking forward to working with him on this important initiative. So a big thank you all for being here. Again, for the Government of Alberta, Premier, Minister. We're really excited about this. It's No one else in this country is doing this, and we're really excited to be able to do this at the University of Calgary out of Alberta for something that is so important for the country and for the continent. So very excited, and now I will turn it over to Clifford.
Well, thank you so much. It's such a small world. Chris Sands is my colleague at Johns Hopkins SAIS, and he's everywhere here, it seems like, right? First, thank you so much to the government of Alberta, as well as the University of Calgary. It's great to get the invite. It's great to be here. Ipsos is excited. By the way, what is an Ipsos? It's not a Latin word or a Greek word. It's a market research and polling company that is global in scale. We have boots on the ground in 90 countries. We cover 130, and we have a long history here in Canada, right? Ipsos in Canada, Ipsos Reid, as well as in the United States. And indeed, these are times that are trying. There's a lot of trepidation and unease, especially in the United States, but around the world, our polling suggests that. And one thing that we came away with after the election last year was that maybe we don't quite understand the America that we thought we did. You know, it was a different, more muscular victory for Trump. And what I would say is it's not that things are changing so much in the United States. It's just that the United States is not a monolith. It's a mosaic. And indeed, what we know and what we're challenging our clients, challenging stakeholders, challenging decision makers on, is to know this new America, to really understand in this trying period, you know, how people are and what they think. And indeed, just a couple points here, very high-level points. Yes, we're very polarized. Yes, we're broken down by red and blue. It's very clear that we are divided as such. But there's a lot of nuance there, too. Right? And I'll give two very simple examples. One is just on immigration and deportation. On the one hand, almost 90% of Americans agree that criminals who are legal aliens should be deported, but not if they're children. Right? There's a huge difference in support. Or, for instance, we saw this across the states. An individual could vote in favor of abortion on the ballot, but for Trump as well. There's nuance there. We're not binary. And to understand that is to optimally engage America on its own terms. And the last point I'll make, and this is, this is a thread of our research that we've been conducting for the last 10 years, but it's really come into relief over the last little bit, since the election. There are ultimately foundational or fundamental values in America that it doesn't matter if you're red or you're blue or you're purple, you believe in. The most basic of which is fundamental fairness. And what I would say is the following. Not that I agree necessarily, no value judgment, but many Americans would say that the trade regime that exists today between the United States and the world is not fair. Okay? So the point, do I agree with that or not? That's a whole other issue. We'll set that aside. But that's how Americans are framing their understanding of the world, and more specifically, are showing their support for the current administration. I hope, just to kind of round out, that we're able to double down on this issue of knowing the new America, to really understand where Americans stand on those critical issues for Canada and for the province more specifically, so that you could optimally engage us in a way that we understand and that we can optimally be activated. So with that, we're very excited to be here at Ipsos. I look forward to the next steps. Bye. Thank you.
Thanks. Thanks, everyone. We'll now go into the media Q&A portion of this announcement. We'll be taking one question, one follow-up. We'll start here in the room before making our way to the phones. We're a little tight on time today, but go ahead first in the room here.
Hi, Anne-Marie Tricky with Radio-Canada. This question is for Premier Smith. Thanks for taking my question. What's your reaction to Premier François Legault's comments yesterday on possibly having a pipeline going through northern Quebec, social acceptability that may be going up in Quebec? What are you thinking about that?
Well, I think it's fantastic. I think what we've begun to see, especially since big event in November in the United States, that Canadians have had to do a lot of soul searching about what it means to be Canadian. And what I've seen at the First Minister's table is that every single premier has priority projects that they want to get built, and they've had to make some compromises on things perhaps in the past. I've pointed out to them that the reason Alberta sells so much to the United States is we've had a hard time selling to our neighbors, both west and east as well as north. And what can we do about that? So I started that conversation with Premier Legault. He did say that he would have to ensure that there was social acceptability. We've done some polling, and we shared that with him to demonstrate that the loud voices might be in opposition, but the quiet consensus is that, yeah, we do need to work on these nation-building projects. I'm sensitive to the fact that perhaps we have to have a broader discussion about the route. Perhaps going through Montreal is a little bit more problematic than going further north, but I think that that is a real demonstration of how premiers and provinces want to work together.
Great. My follow-up is on the cabinet reshuffle that you've announced later today. What are you trying to accomplish with this cabinet shuffle? We do understand you're splitting up the health ministry further, for example. So what's the aim really of this?
The main aim is filling the vacancy left by Rick McIver becoming the new speaker. And of course, he became the new speaker because Nathan Cooper is going to be our envoy in Washington. I know it's a role that Gary Marr played, and I'm hoping that you'll be able to assist on that. And now with this new institute, I think it's going to be a really good source of information so that Nathan Cooper can be supported in some of the developing relationship. But that was the main goal. And then as a result, there's always, once you move one cabinet minister, you have to start moving a few others. So we've got a few announcements that we'll make a little bit later today. You'll be able to see, and we can do some follow-up questions. But I don't want to spill the tea until we do the formal announcement.
Hi, I'm from Edward from City News. Just a question for the Premier on first just hail damage. So residents in Calgary's northeast in a short bit are going to be holding a press conference about just action needed on the home insurance front. Some of them are saying that they're seeing sky-high premiums. Others are saying that they're seeing them being dropped from their home insurance provider. What do you make of their calls, and is the province looking at any legislative changes or any supports to help residents in that area? I
have such sympathy for those who live in a hail zone. And unfortunately, just our geography, we are always going to have hailstorms in particular in this zone. And that particular part of the city has been hard hit, not only now, recently, but also in previous storms. This damage level, I think, categorizes it as the worst natural disaster payout in history in Canada, which is saying something because we've had some pretty big wrecks. And so I have already asked my minister responsible, that's Minister of Finance, Nate Horner, to see if we need to do a parallel kind of review of property insurance that we just finished on auto insurance, because there is obviously going to be risk premiums built in every time you have natural disasters. So we've had a couple major hailstorms, we've had three major fires, Fort McMurray, Slave Lake, Jasper. We've had major flooding in southern Alberta. There's been ice storms, there's been tornadoes. And so we may have to have a broader discussion about how we deal with some of those, what have been called in the past acts of God, but they're becoming very, very frequent and very, very damaging. So I take the point. I'll be looking to see what some of the recommendations are, but it probably is time to do a full review of the property file as well.
And just a question on another topic. Why did the UCP appoint a candidate for the riding of Old Didsbury three hills rather than having a nomination race?
I wanted to get all three by-elections done at the same time. We, of course, have with the vacancy of Ms. Notley leaving government and Rod Loyola leaving government, we had Ellerslie and Edmonton Strathcona as well. Knowing that this change was coming with the Speaker, but because of timing issues, we were developing it late. I think it just, for taxpayers' purposes, better to have all three of them at once. And we've just run out of time to be able to do a full open nomination process. So I had about 14 candidates present themselves as potentials. I interviewed the ones that lived in the riding, and Tara Sawyer just emerged as really a spectacular candidate for us. She's the former chair of Alberta Grains, and we do need to have some bench strength as we're dealing with some of the tariffs from China and the impact it's going to have on canola and other industries. So there's, I think she'll, should she be elected, I think she'll be a great addition to our caucus team.
Go ahead, Tim.
Hey, Tim Brooks, CTV. I'm just having a tough time getting an answer on this one from your government. So I'm hoping to kind of figure out amendments made last minute to Bill 54 in the name of honoring, respecting treaty rights, etc. So can you give us a tangible example of how that could be used in the future if there is a separation referendum? Because a lot of First Nations chiefs, or maybe all First Nations chiefs, would argue that the only way you can honor and respect treaty rights is just by dropping this separation conversation.
Well, I would say that no one is saying that to Quebec. Quebec has 23 Bloc MPs, and they have a Parti Québécois that is polling at the highest amount. And so it seems to me that's a question for scholars, legal scholars, to answer. It's a question that's been put to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court answered it. It's been addressed in the Clarity Act about self-determination, and so I think those are details that I would leave to the lawyers to sort out. As you know, at the moment, there are no petition campaigns. There's no referendums planned. I have always said I support a sovereign Alberta within a united Canada, and my job is to get a new deal with Canada, which is what I'm going to be spending my time on.
Okay. And then my next question is about the health ministry. It's been under a lot of fire. Obviously, Adriana LaGrange has had some calls for her to resign over the last session. Can you just talk about, first of all, the work that she's done, and also about that portfolio, because it's probably the biggest in the province. Yeah. Can you just talk about how maybe difficult that assignment is?
I can tell you the health ministry is $29 billion, or at least was when we started off. And it was slowly but surely taking over all aspects of government. They were getting to a point where they were talking about starting to build social housing because they have so many alternative level of care patients who have complex needs. And we don't want a health ministry that's 30 or 35 or $40 billion, so I think we're going to go in the other direction. So part of what she had to do is figure out how we create dedicated agencies that can focus on each aspect of the health system. So that refocusing is almost complete. We knew that we needed a special arm for mental health and addiction, and that's led by my minister there in Recovery Alberta. And that is going to ensure that there's another door to go through if you've got a mental health issue or you've got an addiction issue, which with our recovery communities. The second one is the assisted living Alberta. What we've discovered is that we need to have a better line of sight with my housing minister, who's an expert at managing a housing portfolio to ensure that we're building the right type of housing for the alternative level of care patients. So that will be completed in the transfer that will be completed in July to my Minister of Seniors, Community and Social Services. The other area has been acute care Alberta, and we want our hospitals to be hospitals again. We want them to be a place where if you have an urgent condition, you go to hospital, or a surgery, you go to hospital, you get treated, and then you go back out for convalescence in the community. So that was part of that refocusing. And the final area, which I'm just so excited to see more work done on, is preventative care and primary care. And so we have a new nurse practitioner deal, and I think it's close to 60 nurse practitioners who have already set up and started taking patients. We've got a new doctor's deal so that we can start developing team-based care. We already have 900 doctors who've signed up to that new care model. We have public health that's going to be, that is in the primary care area, and so much more work that needs to be done on trying to keep people healthy so that they don't end up having their chronic conditions deteriorate and need to go into hospital. So that's the reason why it's been split up into 4 different areas, and we're nearing the completion on that, and then the hard work begins on just getting better and better performance improvement out of all of our agencies.
Thanks, Tim. We have time for a few more questions. We'll take one or two more from the room, and then we'll go to the phones. Go ahead.
This is a high microphone. Hi, Premier. I'm Carolina Vendana with the Epoch Times. I've heard you have said previously that Chinese tariffs are targeted and directed at splitting our country up. So I'm wondering if you can explain how you think these tariffs are pitting one region against the other in Canada.
Sure. I should let the audience know this normally happens with media. They don't always ask on-topic questions, so just what we have with the free press. So just hope you'll indulge that for a moment. Well, I can tell you that this is, again, maybe going back to the objects of this new institute that we're starting off, is that obviously the Americans have grave concern that they're losing the economic battle and the AI battle with China. And so I think that the Americans, as part of a condition to getting access to their market, are increasingly going to be asking for restrictions on how much trade we do with China. We've already seen it with steel and aluminum tariffs. Part of that was that we don't want steel and aluminum being dumped into our market, having some kind of minor upgrade, and then being dumped into the American market. That was one of the things that the U.S. president raised in his first term, and clearly still believes that that's a problem. Same with autos. When the Americans put a 100% tariff on electric vehicles, our government responded in the same manner, again, so that there wasn't some dumping that happened into Canada that then undermined the U.S. auto industry. The unfortunate consequence of that is that we now have a 100% tariff on vehicles nobody really wants in Canada, because I don't think there's a massive amount of demand for Chinese electric vehicles, to protect an electric vehicle industry in Canada that doesn't yet exist because those investments haven't been made. And the consequence of that is the Chinese retaliation has been against the products everybody does want, which is pork and canola. And I can only interpret that as the Chinese understand the divisions in our country. They understand that if you're going to retaliate and create maximum pressure, you do it by pitting one region against the other. So it's why Wab Kinew, Scott Moe, and myself have all asked the federal government if they could try to figure out a pathway that we would be able to normalize relationships with China again, because it does have a massive impact on our agricultural communities. But I do think it's whenever you get into these kind of trade wars, countries make decisions about how they're going to exert maximum pressure, and I would say that that's what I'm observing with China's retaliation on Canada.
Thank you, Premier. And my follow-up question is, what do you think is the stance Ottawa should take toward Beijing now that we have a new federal government? Taking into account that first, so what are deemed as unfair trade practices by China, human rights abuses, and also interference in our democracy. As we saw during the federal election, there was this information campaign targeting Carney, influencing Chinese Canadians, his opinion on Carney, and also targeting the Tory candidate, Joe Tai.
I'll quote maybe Michael Spavor, who was quoted today saying our relationship with China will never be the same again after what happened to Michael Spavor and Michael Kovrig. And I think that is part of the reason why we haven't fully normalized relations with China again. They are an enormous economy, quite obviously, and Alberta has a huge trade relationship with China. We are not as huge as with the United States. United States and Alberta, we share $188 billion worth of cross-border trade. China, it's $10 billion, so still significant, and a lot of it centered around food. But to be frank, I think we're going to have this conversation with the Americans, because what I'm observing in the language that I'm seeing from the U.S. president is he's saying, if you want to be treated like we historically with a tariff-free relationship, there's going to be some conditions attached to that with the relationship we have with China. I think what I have observed in many of the comments that I've seen from the president and his secretaries, particularly Doug Burgum, is they're very worried about China winning the AI data race, and because artificial intelligence is manufacturing intelligence, and they are building electricity at a greater rate than we are, to be able to support what that electricity demand is going to be for AI. And they understand that if China gets the dominance over North America, it's going to really change the way the world operates. So I'm sensitive to understanding what some of the American objectives are, and I don't think I can answer that today. Maybe you can put it to the panel that's going to be discussing it after this conference, or after this announcement, because those are exactly the reason why we are establishing this new North America project. Is that this is a different kind of conversation than we might have had a year ago, but it's a very important one for us to have, to understand how do we maintain the preferential relationship with the United States, still find new markets, but find the balance so that we don't have to sacrifice one over the other.
Thank you. And we're almost at time here, so it looks like we just have time for one more question. We're going to go to the phones. Operator, could you put through our first caller, please?
Your first question comes from the line of Rick Bell with Post Media. Please go ahead.
Good morning, Premier. I know you met with Prime Minister Carney 2 weeks ago, and you were quite positive, and I know you're hoping for the best, and I know you're an optimist at heart, but actions have consequences and inactions have consequences. You have 9 demands on the table that you would like to see dealt with in the next 6 months. My question is, what do you believe the reaction of Albertans, not the rest of the country, just Albertans, what the reaction of Albertans will be if those demands that you have on the table are not met? In other words, what is the risk for the Prime Minister, for the Canadian government, for Canada? What is the risk of not dealing with those 9 issues and following through and getting that new deal that you want?
Maybe I'll put it in practical terms, because I know that the federal government is seeking input on projects that might qualify for a fast-track process. And so that's what I'll be looking at as an indicator of whether the federal government is going to meet us partway. Because the project I've put on the table is a revival of the Northern Gateway pipeline to Port of Prince Rupert. Because when you look at that particular route, it gives us access to all the Asian markets and gives us a preference of being able to get our product there over any country in the world. We've got 8 days or 10 days to South Korea and to Tokyo, and then going on to the east coast of India and all the other nations in between. And so being able to create new markets there with additional export of bitumen is going to be incredibly important. Some of the biggest refinery in the world of heavy oil is in India. There are 4 Korean refineries that have already received shipments of Trans Mountain heavy oil, and they like it, and they want more of it. So what does that mean? Well, they'd have to have a fast-track process to approve that pipeline, so we're not waiting 10 years, and so that it is de-risked to a point where somebody will come along and build it. And if you're going to have that pipeline end at Port of Prince Rupert, well, you're going to have to do a carve-out on the tanker ban so that we can load it onto a boat and get it overseas. And if you do all of that, then you're going to probably have to take the ties off of our energy industry to talk about how we're going to reduce our emissions without facing criminal penalty, because right now that's called greenwashing under their Bill 59. And to be able to get support, we'd have to talk about the Pathways Project and how we might be able to decarbonize the production. And that means no emissions caps, because if you want to increase your export, you can't have an emissions cap which acts as a production cap. And on top of that, we have a framework for how our carbon emissions are priced, which we've been doing since 2007. And we've heard you can't go above $100, otherwise it's going to create an economic environment where people won't invest here. So that means they can't layer on their own carbon tax regime. So those are like 5 things right there that they would signal to me that they are serious about changing things if they agreed to the Port of Prince Rupert revival of Northern Gateway or something like it. So that's what I'm looking for.
And I'm sure most Albertans are looking for that too. If that doesn't happen, if Alberta's heart gets broken yet again And you've seen this movie many times, and you've heard people speak very positively, and then in the end, nothing happens. What is the risk if you want national unity if we can't get that, which is, as you say, a very specific, hands-on project? If that can't be accepted, and what goes along with that, what do you think the reaction of Albertans will be to that if it is rejected, and what do you think that means for Confederation?
Well, let me answer in a very practical way again, because I know that there are several projects that are being floated to the U.S. Secretary of the Interior, Doug Burgum, that would get more of our oil and gas out of Alberta and into the United States. And then I would say to my colleagues again, what do you think it's going to do to national unity that it's easier for Alberta to get its product traded to the United States than through British Columbia or through Eastern Canada? And then we're going to have that conversation, because that is the problem that we have right now, is that we all have stronger ties north-south than we do east-west. And so I'll be looking at that as an indicator of whether words were said just to win elections, or whether words were said because we're serious about trading with each other and supporting each other. And we're serious about finding new markets for our products. So I think we'll know pretty soon, Rick, about whether or not we're going to have to switch our focus to continuing to expand our relationship with the United States, or whether our neighbors are going to be serious about not just having us on Team Canada, but Team Canada being on Team Alberta.
Thank you. And that's all the time we have for questions today. Thank you, everybody, for joining us.
Thanks, everyone.